Hello, sisters, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy my conversation with Susi Kaeufer as she shares her stories about quitting her job and becoming location independent as a coach.
Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean Go Solo Live? Have you ever been asked, why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Joining me today is Susi Kaeufer, and she is actually live from Vietnam right now. Welcome, Susi.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
You bet. I'm so excited to start to hear more about your story because you're a little younger than my normal guest, which is not a bad thing. You also have a bit of a different background and certainly a different career than most of the people that I talk to, which is the goal, to share all these different folks. If I keep interviewing the same person time after time, it's going to get a little boring. So let's start by hearing, where did you grow up and what was that like for you?
Okay, well, I'm born in Germany and raised in Germany, and I had a pretty classic German life, I'd say. I followed the conventional path of what my grandparents did, what my parents did. You finish school, you get a proper education, you get a proper job, and then you start building your career. So I started building a career in media and marketing and went the classic way, even though it kind of never felt right. I was always hoping that the next job would be better and be more fulfilling, and I moved cities a lot to find fulfillment and happiness. But a new job and a new city and a new car kind of didn't do the trick. I still felt like there must be something more, but no one did understand that. Everybody was doing this journey: get a job, build a career, make good money, buy a house, have a family, and then retire, and then maybe go traveling and fulfill your dreams. But I always had this huge urge to move overseas and to travel and to explore the world, but didn't know how to do it. I didn't have the funds. I didn't have the courage, and everybody around me was like, well, you can't just quit your job and travel. What's that? Like, how long? And when are you coming back? And then what? You will not have any money. You will not have a secure job anymore. What's going to happen? Worst case thinking.
Well, so that's interesting. So I grew up in a household. My dad is an immigrant from Germany. And the area that we're in the Midwest has very strong German roots. So this work ethic and standard plan that you're describing sounds a lot like what I'm familiar with growing up, and why I believe that in the Midwest of the United States, there's that similar mindset where you go to different countries and certainly, different continents, and the mindset around travel is entirely different. So I think what you're describing in terms of the mindset of how you grew up is something that many people can relate to.
Absolutely. I think it's probably the most conventional way of living in most first world countries. But I think there is a small percentage of people that can't really settle for that, or that is just feels like cramped in a box that doesn't feel right. And I was basically always screaming for more, but didn't really know how to fulfill that, because everybody around me, and I adapted those voices, was basically saying, well, what do you think who you are? What do you think what you want to do apart from working, making money, and building a life?
Well, and what makes you special that you think that you don't have to follow the rules to do it? I think there's some of that mindset as well.
Yes, exactly.
And partly it's just because I want to. Like, there doesn't have to be anything different about it. It's just that not everyone desires to do this. And if you do desire to do it, well, then why not?
Exactly. So I felt pretty different in regards of what I wanted to build for my life, but I didn't really see how that would play out, or how you can actually travel forever and still make a living. I mean, I did kind of understand I can not just do nothing, but that was not what I desired, even though I was accused of that. People were like, oh, you want to have a never-ending holiday. And I was like, no, I'm happy to work and to contribute and build something and to make an impact. but I don't want to sit in an office my whole life and then just wait for the next holiday where I then actually really am happy for 2 weeks and then I go back to normal life.
Right. Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. So part of this, though, we're talking about the culture of this, which makes a lot of sense to have that conversation. I'm also curious, who were your role models to think about travel and the ability to have that?
I think the biggest problem was that I didn't have in-person role models for that. I didn't know a real person who did that. So I did follow travel bloggers. I think that was the first thing like 10 years ago where you really saw people who are traveling and make money with their travel blog. So I was looking into that, but that kind of didn't feel like what I really wanted to do. I did look up as well, like I play poker more as a hobby, but there is professional poker players who as well were able to travel from tournament to tournament around the world and make a living by doing that. So that was one of the things where I was like, well, there is people having a very unconventional lifestyle, doing something very different, and they still get by and they're not starving and they are not having this conventional, secure life that people tell me is the only way of living.
It's a really good point. And I think it's one that, again, partly the idea just that your hobby or your interest could be another way to travel and finding the possibilities for role models. And I can appreciate because there's so many people that I talk to that have become this travel blogger just by this, for the reason that they think that that's the only option as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are becoming the role model for others.
Yes, and there's not only one opportunity. Once I started traveling and once I really started meeting other digital nomads and people who do this long-term, full-time, because it's their thing in their life, my whole perception shifted on that. I saw how many ways there is actually to create that. I just didn't see that because, yes, when I was sitting in my office in Germany, I didn't meet those people. But once I was really with my backpack around the globe, I felt like those people are everywhere. Those people are surrounding me every single day. How could I not have found them before?
Absolutely. Okay. So how did it all begin for you then? So that's where you were. How did it all begin?
It was my 30th birthday. Those kind of birthdays where you're like, is this really it? Is this really what I want to do for the next 10 years until it's my 40th birthday and for the next 10 years until it's my 50th birthday? Or will there be the point where we'll have to go for it, where I'll have to try? I didn't really know how this would end or what I want to do, but I knew, okay, I can't wait to do this any longer. And I was postponing, and I always thought, well, I need more savings. When I have more savings, I'll feel more secure. And when I feel more secure, I'll actually do it. And I was building savings and it still didn't happen. I never felt that safety to say, hey, now it feels safe to quit my job and just go for my dreams.
Got it.
And then actually a work colleague of mine quit her job to travel to Nicaragua for 4 months. Just like that. And I was like, whoa, hang on, that's my story. That should be my story. How is it possible that someone else is just doing that and I'm procrastinating this step since 10 years and can't get it done because I can't find the courage? And that was really kind of a trigger point where I said, okay, if she can do that, and that's a real life person I know, she was working the same job than I did, I can do that too. And I did quit my job, booked a one-way ticket to South Africa, and that's kind of day one of the new life.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't seem extreme at all. So I love the story of I quit my job and I bought my ticket and I left. But you had been mentally preparing and you just needed the catalyst, which you found in that moment. What were some of the other preparations you'd been doing? Like, for example, is this something that you had been sort of easing your family into, that this was going to happen and you just didn't know when you were going to pull the trigger? What are some of the other sides of that?
So first of all, I've been planning this for many, many, many years. I have done research, even in office jobs whilst pretending to work. I always had like a back window open where I was checking how you can travel through Africa and how you can backpack through Asia. So I felt like I have done tons of research and I felt like I knew everything. I knew when the bus leaves in Cape Town and goes to Durban, without ever actually planning to really go there. So I kind of felt like this was not a new topic for me. I've been researching stuff for 10 years. So I felt ready in regards of, I know how to organize my solo travel without actually ever have done it. Family-wise, they always knew as well that it's a topic. And they always knew it's kind of coming that I will go for a couple of months. But I think they saw it as a sabbatical kind of thing. Okay, take your savings, travel for 4 months, find yourself, come back, go back to normal life.
Well, and is gap year a standard in Germany?
Not really.
Okay.
Some people do it. I, at that age, honestly wasn't ready for that. I sometimes wish I would have had the guts already when I was 19, but no, I wasn't ready for that.
Okay, so you also, even though it's not something that you did, it's not unheard of in terms of, some people do take a gap year. So if you didn't, and now you're saying you want to, they said, oh, she'll go get her head on straight in 4 months and come home.
Yes, kind of. So the idea of a gap year is go somewhere, do something, but come back and then start the normal life.
Yes.
My idea was always, well, but this is the life I want to have.
Yep. So you were ready to create your new lifestyle. You had done some of the traditional and you were ready for something new.
Definitely. I didn't know how that would look like.
Okay.
I just knew, okay, I have to find a starting point. I can't spend another 10 years being scared of trying what will happen. And once I dared to actually go for it, everything else fell into place.
That's awesome. So tell us what that looked like.
So I left in 2014. That's 4 years ago now. And basically for 1 year, I was really solo backpacking around the world, ticking off my bucket list, doing everything I wanted to do. Volunteering with wildlife in South Africa, traveling whole Asia, going to Australia, always with a little bit of the idea, could I live in Australia forever?
Okay.
And Australia seemed to be way more, it's warm, there's beaches, and the work-life mentality was way better than in Germany. So I did get a job in Australia, and even though it was a job, it was just so much better. The people left at 2 p.m. and took their surfboard and go to the beach. And they have a way better balance in regard. They kind of work to live and not live to work.
Agreed completely. Okay, well, that's fantastic. What else about Australia? What else was your draw, and what were you trying to accomplish there?
I really didn't want to go back to Germany. So I'm basically on this whole around the world trip. Don't tell my parents that. They don't like to hear that. But I was always looking for a new potential home, for an adoptive home where I would feel more like I really fit in. And that is what Australia became. Even though I'm currently not there and I'm still having this addiction to travel different places, but I would now say my home base where I would go back to is Australia indeed, because it fits my own personality better.
And I can really relate to that. New Zealand is my place. I'll be going for the 4th time next year. And if I could, make a summer home of it or something like that, or a winter home, so it's summer there.
I understand.
Right? I would totally do that. So I can appreciate where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, I love Australia. And then still though, I was in a job again. It was better. It was a job in Australia. I lived in Sydney. I really couldn't complain. It was a pretty good lifestyle. But still, I felt like this is not yet it. My real thing is to have my own thing. I want to have something that I can take with me. I don't want to start again when I move countries with the 19-year-old backpackers that I was competing for jobs. And I was like in my 30s and felt like, okay, this is not it anymore. I'm not 20, I'm not 18, and I don't want to start from scratch in low-paid backpacker jobs whenever I arrive in a new country. I want to build up something for retirement, and even though I'm traveling, I kind of want to be a responsible person to take care of myself. And I was kind of done with those $15 per hour jobs that every 18-year-old around me was doing. I was like, well, there must be something else that I can do and that can build on, that I can actually take with me, and that is actually really mine. And that's when I then really started building my own location-independent business, which allows me to work from anywhere. So I can go back to Australia, I can be in Vietnam, I can stay there as long as I want, I can go somewhere else. And this is really the ultimate freedom and independence I was always craving.
So let's start talking about, what did that look like as you started to figure out what a location independent business was going to be and how you were going to achieve that?
I basically started to work with a business coach, trying to figure out how can I use my talents and my passions and this whole thriving for location independence and build a profitable business out of that. And kind of the investment in a business coach that was actually working on this with me helped me so much. And funny enough, whilst we were doing that, it got more and more clear to me that, well, coaching and marketing are kind of my skills and my background as well. And there is actually people creating a business out of that, which I didn't know about before. Again, that was a mystery to me. Like, what's an online coach?
Right. And again, there's a lot of people still who are not exposed to that concept. So it's something that until you know, you don't know.
Correct. Absolutely. And that has done a lot for me personally. That's why I really believe in it, because I have seen how my mindset has transformed from, okay, this is what I think I have to do, and this is what most people do, and this is what everybody should do, to really say, okay, I'm not looking at that anymore. What's my thing? What would I really love to do if I knew I couldn't fail? Or if I knew everything would work out, what would be the thing I would really, really go for?
That sounds fantastic. So you decided, and again, you found a coach. When people are looking for a coach, what were some of the things that you found? You were looking for certain qualities. How did you decide what coach was going to make the most sense for you?
I still do that until today. I basically look for people who are where I want to be. So even now, I still work with business coaches to up-level my business and to create the next level. And I usually connect very well with people where I can see they have created what I want to create, and not too long ago, they have been where I am currently at. So you kind of see this person was where I'm coming from. This person has achieved what I want. And then you look very closely and listen very carefully to, okay, what is it exactly that they did? How exactly did they change their mindset and their beliefs? How exactly did they get there? So it's kind of modeling a role model again, finding someone who's really there, so for me, that is, who has a successful location independent business without working all the time, because balance is very, very important for me. And that's the people I just relate to. I think it's a personal decision as well. It's not only business, what kind of business I have. I think it's always people that I have a lot in common as well with when it comes to values and craving freedom and independence and creating a business that still allows you to have that freedom.
That sounds fantastic. So starting a business isn't easy. And oftentimes people are told to start with, their friends, where do you start? And you start with the relationships that you currently have. How do you do that when you have now, left behind the familiar and you're out traveling the world?
I basically really found people online. The whole online world has changed so many things. This wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. But I didn't have a website. I didn't have all those professional looking things yet. I was literally just posting in other Facebook groups and on Instagram what I have done, how my own journey looked like. I already had 3 years of solo travel on my back or in my story. Mm-hmm. And there were lots of people who were where I was still before that. So all those people still in the 9-to-5, all those
Sure.
people who were still longing for more were like, how did you do that?
Sure.
Tell me everything.
That makes sense. Okay. So that happens and you just start building relations. So that's a foreign thing to me. And I will say that that's partly what's demonstrated by the age difference between us. And it's, I think, probably just about 10 years.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting here like almost hesitating going, oh my gosh, that sounds in some ways terrifying. Because I think the way that my generation was taught to build their network was in person first and then social. So talk about that again, because my audience is going to be probably a bit closer to my age than yours. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about, overcoming that fear, because what's great when people do reach out on social, you can make relationships with people all over the world. So you can find out all sorts of things about each other and decide, maybe we want to stay connected and meet up when we're traveling or something like that.
Very, very interesting what you say about the age difference and how that affects how people use social media. This is true. I have used social media just naturally. When I left on my around the world trip, I used social media to share where I am and how I am without having to message all my 50 friends and my 10 family members single. So I basically shared very open and transparent on social media my whole travel journey and my personal development on that journey in the first place to keep people that I already know connected to me. So
Fair
they
enough.
know what's going on and I don't have to tell, my life changed every single week. So I was like, now I'm here, now I'm doing this. And it was hard for people that don't change their life every single week to catch up otherwise.
That's a true statement. There's a lot of people who the whole idea of like, so what are you doing now?
I still have that. Sometimes
Where
my
are
family,
you?
yes, exactly. My family is still like, so where are you now?
That
still happens.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how I connected more and more as well with other like-minded people that I didn't know. So that were basically strangers, but you can still find them in like-minded Facebook groups, in groups for location independence, and you will find your tribe, even though, yes, it's people from all over the world. You have never met them before. You may probably never meet them in your life, and still you can build a connection. And I mainly found my clients this way.
That says a lot. That's exciting. So and I love this because I'm an entrepreneur. I love this entrepreneurial spirit. This all really resonates with me. And I'm just looking at it from the point of view of the audience where I'm saying, so tell us what it is that you are specifically doing, because that term life coach and even the idea of being a certified life coach, there's some credibility to that. And then, what is that certification really like? So who are you helping? What are you doing for them? And how are you trained to do it and things like that?
I basically now help entrepreneurs who already have started a business that is connected to location independence. So it's mainly service-based business owners. It's women. And I help them to be visible online, but not only how to use social media to do that, but as well how to overcome the fear to do that. How do you actually really show up on social media as the real person that you really are? Because there is on social media a lot of shiny, my boat, my beach, my house, my life is awesome presentation. But I think how you really build connections in social media, and that's the only way, is by using it as a real person and by showing and sharing who you really are. And for many entrepreneurs, this is new because that's not how they were used to use social media, and that is not how they are used to build connections. And it's pretty vulnerable as well to go out there in a social media platform. This will never be deleted. This will always be found, and share something vulnerable or something personal about yourself.
Absolutely. So what's been your business evolution process? So, everybody has a starting point, but how has it grown and shifted for you?
I really started as a classic life coach. I felt like, okay, I'll do a certification there because I'm German and we like certifications because that makes me feel like I'm a proper certified life coach. But honestly, my clients never ask for that. My clients never ask me, where did you study your certification? What kind of certification is that? They basically care about the results I have created for myself and I have created for my previous clients. So certification is nice to have, and I felt confident doing it just to get some tools on how I'm actually coaching people.
Well, it's partly developing a process.
Yes, exactly. And that's all it is. So it gets a bit overrated in my opinion, especially as there's no regulations. So there's 1 million certifications. One is more expensive than the other. One takes longer than the other. And they're just very, very different.
Agreed, completely. And I appreciate your perspective on that. And that's not to discredit any of the extensive programs that are out there. That doesn't diminish them at all. Instead, it just says there's a wide variety. And if that's something that's important to, somebody who is using a coach, then rather than just look for certification, understand what's behind that. So disclaimer,
Absolutely.
disclaimer.
Absolutely. And then basically I started myself without having a website, only using social media to get fully booked in my coaching business, which then led to kind of a transformation because more and more people were asking me, how did you do that? How did you get fully booked in your brand new coaching business? And now you can travel the world full time doing that without having a website, without having 10 years of experience, without having all those things that many people tell you should have before you can build a successful business.
I really appreciate that too, because I believe that while there is social credibility that comes from some of the standard things, when you do it right for yourself, you're the story. And those other things are just extra bonus. They're not necessary. And of course, you have a beautiful website now, and we'll share that with everyone at the end. But, again, if you just want to do what you want to do, there's a variety of ways to start. And I think you're illustrating that.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important for every single person to find their own. So with my clients, I don't teach them, this is what I did, you do exactly the same. We really find what comes natural to them. For me, being on social media is natural. If you are not on social media at all at the moment, I will not force you into becoming the star on Instagram. You have to find something that comes easy to you, build on your strengths, build on what you are good at and what you love doing. Because otherwise, if you try to force yourself into something like hanging out on Instagram all day, every day, and you just don't want to be there, this is not going to work for you.
No, because the whole reason that we're location independent and not working for corporate and all those kinds of things is because we want to do stuff our way and we want to do what we like doing. And if all of a sudden we're being forced to do something somebody else says and that we don't like doing, we're not going to do it.
No, feels like the same crap again, doesn't it?
Except there's nobody else to complain to about your boss because you're the boss.
Exactly. So you really have the responsibility to create it in a way that is actually really aligned with who you are and what you actually want to create.
Well, let's take this back to travel just a little bit more, because we've continued to talk about, how your business has helped you create this location independence lifestyle. What have you done with that lifestyle?
Well, basically, I never went back. Everybody's still waiting. When is she finishing this round the world trip? But it's been 4 years now. And it is not a break for me. This is not a break from life and then I get back to normal life. This is the life I created and I want to continue to live that way. I want to have the freedom to stay wherever I want to stay, move on whenever I want to move on, explore new projects, ventures, learn yoga on Bali, rescue animals in Africa. There's so many things I'm interested in. I'm super multi-passionate and I just want to keep experience something a couple of weeks without having to commit my whole life. So I don't want to be an animal keeper for the rest of my life, but I do want to work and support animals. So it's awesome to have the opportunity to do all those things in your life without having to pick one thing only.
Absolutely. I think the thing that so many people don't allow themselves to believe is that we can live in a world of ands, not ors.
Yes, exactly.
And so you get to do a business that you love and you get to do X, Y, and Z and, all these other things. And you're creating that. There's no choice. You can live in this world of ands. And I think that's really important for people to be able to pay attention to.
Absolutely. And again, that's something where it's great to see role models. For example, when I started seeing travel bloggers and digital nomads, I kind of thought, well, you have to choose. You can either have a career and make good money, or you can choose freedom and travel, low budget, backpacker hostels, save all the time, get 70-cent meals whenever you can to stretch your savings. And if I have to choose that, I will always choose freedom. Definitely. Yeah. If the choice is money and freedom, I will always choose freedom. But now I have experienced even that is not a choice you have to make. I don't have to stay in hostel dorms with 20 other people per night. That's not how I want to live my life, especially not long term. And it's not necessary. You can create any end you want. Yeah, you can create, I make good money in my business and I travel the world.
Exactly. And we're making it sound very easy, but in a way, it is very easy.
When you look at it back in the big picture, it's easy. When I was in the middle of the struggle, of course, I didn't see that.
Yep.
But I was really so driven by finding a way to make this work that I just kept going and kept going and kept going, and things just fell into place and happened.
Absolutely. No, that sounds fantastic. So, where are some of the places that you've been, and how long are you hanging out in places? And I think you have the option, which is nice, to adjust those choices as you see fit.
It's really interesting because it switches for me. Sometimes I really travel a lot in a place of weeks, and then it does get tiring at some point. I've been really moving a lot now. I would really love to stay in a home for 1 or 2 months to work on my business, to relax a bit, to slow things down. And the magic is that I can really choose that, and I'm super flexible with that. So it's usually a bit of a mix between lower, slower periods where I just settle somewhere for a while. And then usually I get nervous and I'm like, okay, I want to move on and experience new stuff and be more fast-paced again for a period of time.
That sounds not like it's a surprise at all. I mean, again, it's this natural roller coaster ebb and flow of, the thrill and then wanting some space to, reclaim your time and all of that as well.
Exactly. So I'm currently in Vietnam for 2 months in total, which is already a longer period of time for me. And then I'm headed to Thailand, and then I'm headed to Bali. And what's after that, I currently don't know yet.
And so how are you making your decisions about where's next?
That's a very good question. I don't know if I can answer that. It's usually something intuitive or something like, okay, now there's a cheap flight to here. I always wanted to go there, so let's go there. Or sometimes it's a bit of a mix between Western world and third world countries as well. Like after traveling a longer time in Africa or Asia, I usually crave areas where you can just walk into a shop and buy everything. So I spent the summer in Canada, for example, which was great and it's easy. And yes, you can walk into the supermarket and get everything. But then after a couple of months, again, that felt a bit like not so exciting anymore. So then it's usually then going to a more exciting place after that.
Absolutely. No, that sounds, again, it sounds like you are really creating what you want. So I'm going to be talking to Suzy 10 years down the road. What does her life look like?
That's a very interesting question because many people expect that one day, miraculously, I will have this urge to settle down, build the house, have the dog, have the 3 kids. And I don't think this is going to happen. Maybe it will. I think if your desires change, you're free to change. But I don't think it will happen. People say that since I'm 20, one day you will want a family and you want to settle down and you will become a normal person. But I guess it will still look similar. I guess it will slow down a bit. I can imagine to live 6 months somewhere and 6 months on the other side of the globe, for example, and then travel in between.
That makes sense.
But I guess it will never be the classic life of house, dog, kids, settle in one place.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like that's the whole point of this, is that we get to choose and live the life that we design. But it is interesting, and as you continue to hit your mid-30s and progress towards 40s, the social conventions.
Absolutely.
So how do you explain this passion and almost like a calling and a need for travel and this pure sense of independence? How do you explain that to people who they just really can't relate?
I think I don't. I think I gave up on that, to be honest. I think it's hard. People who really, and there is a lot of people that can't relate. Yeah, I think it's the majority of people. They think I'm like, oh, there's so many people that have so many opinions about me, but I really learned to, I don't know, close myself off from other people thinking they know what's best for me in my life, because they don't. You will always know what is best for you in your life. And yes, there will be other people with other opinions, especially when the lifestyle you choose is a bit unconventional and is not what most people are doing. But you don't have to explain yourself. I mean, you can to the people you love and the people who really, really care. But the people who kind of just feel insecure by seeing me doing this, because it kind of causes them to question if there is actually another choice for them as well.
And that is it. Honestly, when I first started doing solo travel and people would come to me with all of their concerns about, whether this was a good idea for me to do or not. And finally, I'm like, I don't know that this is so much about me, because wouldn't you think that I would be the one expressing the concerns, if I had them, and instead it's people looking at you through their lens, whether it's their lens of expectations or their lens of hang-ups of sorts. And, they're just processing it through that lens, which is fair. That's what they have to process through. But all of a sudden it's like, yeah, no, I don't think like that.
It's not your job to convince those people.
True statement. I think that's a very fair response to that question. I like that. So we've had a wonderful time, but we are almost out of time. And before I move into the part where you get to tell everybody where to find you, what did I not think to ask you that you wanted to make sure that you shared with our listeners today?
Oh, I think we talked about the really awesome main topics of why it is super important to find your own way and follow your own path without worrying too much about other people's opinions and without worrying too much about your own fears, because usually our own fears come from the other people are surrounding us because we tend to adopt those. If you hear anything all day, every day, that's what you start to believe yourself. But the magic of that means you can change that. You just have to change what you hear and focus on and listen to all day by surrounding yourself with inspiring people, by surrounding yourself with mentors and coaches who do what you want to do instead of the people who are worrying and who are having those fears about what you want to do. And I think that's how you can shift by shifting who's surrounding you, what you think about all day, how positive you can think about every good thing that can happen to you instead of just worrying about all the bad things that could happen to you.
Absolutely. And, having your focus in the right spot makes a big difference as well.
Absolutely.
Suzy, it's been a pleasure. Please make sure that you tell everybody now where they can find you, follow you, and maybe even work with you.
Awesome. So my website is called dreamlifedeluxe.com because I created my Dream Life Deluxe and I want you to create the same. That's kind of the foundation how I came up with that name. And my last name with the German spelling is usually hard to find. So I think your best bet is to really Google Dream Life Deluxe or connect with me on social media if you're a social media queen. I'm on all platforms, but you can simply go to my website, dreamlifedeluxe.com, and you will find my freebies and my blog posts and more about me, and as well my offers how you can work with me.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate you waking up to this morning, even though it is evening my time in Milwaukee. You have just woken up to a beautiful morning in Vietnam.
Correct. So it's going to be a sunny, hot, beautiful day at the pool. I can't complain.
That sounds fantastic. Thanks again, Suzy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Suzy shared with us today? What's nice is that she figured out how to build a business that is meeting her dreams. And it's possible for anyone to do it. If you love these stories and want to help support Go Solo Live, you can do that by making a small financial contribution to the show. There's lots of options with some great gifts of appreciation. Just go to www.patreon.com/GoSoloLive. That's patreon.com. And we've reached the end of another episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. Follow us on Twitter at Go Solo Live and make sure that you share your favorite episode with your friends. Until next time, remember, go solo, not alone.